I assume you have a recommendation for the consents.
That the consent agenda items for the joint council meeting be received for information.
Yeah, move for that, please. Councilor Hirsch, Councilor Spillis, any items to be pulled out? Councilor Hirsch, your first one.
Yeah, 6.17.
Point 17. Down, any other ones? All in favor of receiving the balance of those, it's carried. This was 6.17.
Yes, this is to do with the tariffs and procurement policy. Current my understanding is that we're bound by existing legislation that we have to purchase certain goods from certain countries, and what we're asking for, or these other municipalities are asking for, is for the federal provincial governments to consider recognize the importance of supporting Canadian businesses and workers through procurement practices. So basically what we're doing here, what I'm proposing is a motion that parrots the township of Mulmar and asks that the province and the Canadian government, the province consider promoting Canadian goods.
I'm already gonna so do you have?
I have it written out, I can read it, go ahead.
Sure. Whereas the township of Westland is in receipt of correspondence from Northumberland County dated June 25th, 2025 regarding correspondence, Township of Mulmer, procurement and advocacy for trade agreement exemptions. And whereas the township of Westland also recognizes that tariffs may increase the cost of goods and services sought by the township. And whereas the township also recognizes the importance of supporting Canadian businesses and workers through responsible procurement practices. And whereas municipalities have significant purchasing power but are bound by international trade agreements. And whereas trade agreements such as the Canadian Free Trade Agreement impose restrictions on municipalities and prevent municipalities from giving preference to Canadian suppliers in procurement decisions above certain thresholds. Now therefore be it resolved that the township of Westland also commits to considering Canadian suppliers for goods and services when it's feasible and fiscally responsible, and to do so for procurements under trade agreement thresholds. And that the township of Westland also commits to continue to utilize cooperative purchasing groups to explore cost-saving measures in Canadian suppliers when it is feasible and fiscally responsible to do so. And that the township of Westland also calls upon the Canadian federal and provincial governments to enact legislative changes to exempt municipalities from trade agreement restrictions while tariffs are imposed, allowing them to give preference to Canadian suppliers for goods, services, and infrastructure projects. And further, that a copy of the resolution be sent to the Prime Minister of Canada, the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Leader of the Opposition, MP Michael Chong, MVP Joseph Brzezinski, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and all Ontario municipalities.
All right, moved by Councilor Spillis, can I get a second here, please? Councilor Hirsch, comments, questions, Councilor Hirsch? No. Good, okay, all in favor? It's carried. All right, first. Good report. We have fire chief.
Hi, good morning. I'm just here to answer any questions anybody will have on the agreement with the medical oversight with Hamilton Health Sciences.
All right, can you read the recommendation, please?
That report FR 2025-003 entitled Agreement for Medical Oversight Services with Hamilton Health Sciences be received for information, and that council authorize the mayor and staff to execute the required contract documents.
Okay, mover, please. Councilor Hirsch, Councilor Spillis, any questions of the chief or other staff? All in favor? It's carried. All right, this is Sam.
Good morning, Council. This is just an annual report that's required in accordance with Ontario Regulation 65305 regarding our hedging agreements. I'd be happy to answer any of Council's questions based on the report that's in front of you.
That report FR 2025-023 entitled 2024 Commodity Price Hedging Agreements be received, and that council accepts the treasurer's statement that based on the information supplied by local authority services, all commodity price hedging agreements are consistent with the township statement of policies and goals related to the use of financial agreements to address commodity pricing, and costs as outlined in Schedule A to report by IF 2025-023.
Vote please, Councilor Councilor Goyda. Any questions or comments, Councilor Lewis?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting note that in the questions and answers that we do get a rebate, even though there's a loss projected of 1560. And we're gonna get a rebate in the range of 500 to 750. Is that typically what happens every year?
Yes, so typically we do get a rebate every year. This was the first year in a while, I don't recall, our prices through the last program. There were months where the last program was lower than the union gas rates, and then months where the union gas rate was higher than the last rate. And so that's where the loss is outlined per se, but we do get a rebate check every year, which is a
Very good.
different component to the loss calculation that was presented.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Great, it's Laura come. She would share, it's Sarah's. Come on in.
It's not here. In silence, I go, I think it's my time, I wasn't sure. Okay.
Yep, right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to bring the designation bylaw forward for 880 Victoria Road South, following the legislative timelines under section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act.
That report, CR 2025-028, titled Designation of 880 Victoria Road South, be received for information, and that council affirm its decision to designate 880 Victoria Road South pursuant to section 29, part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that council give 3 readings to bylaw 2025-065, being a designation bylaw for the property municipally known as 880 Victoria Road South, and that staff be authorized to proceed with the notice requirements as outlined in section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act and in accordance with the Township's Ontario Heritage Act alternative notice policy.
Great. Over, please, for that, Councilor Goyda, Councilor Lewis, any questions for Margaret? All in favor? Well done. All right, next one, but
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to give an update to council with the recommendations from the Recreation and Community Wellness Committee with respect to changing the reduced rates for the eligible user groups, broadening the facilities that receive the non-resident rates for facility rentals, and to seek council's direction regarding engagement with those impacted user groups before the changes come into place come 2026.
we can read all that. There's a lot of people that could be affected by this, so.
Yes.
But if you drink water and give her.
So that report, CR 2025-029, entitled Recreation Community Wellness Advisory Committee User Fees and Charges bylaw recommendations be received for information. And that council directs staff to engage with community groups eligible. Staff to engage with community groups eligible, the proposed amendments to the township's. Council directs staff to engage with community groups eligible and to communicate the proposed amendment to the township's. Understanding and rationale of the changes and to the consequences that may emerge through this engagement. And that council directs staff to report back with feedback received as part of the proposed 2026 user fees and charges bylaw. And the council directs staff to incorporate a non-residential rental surcharge of 25% to all township facilities. Non-resident rentals as part of the 2026 user fees and charges bylaw.
All right, can I get a mover, please? Councilor Lewis, Councilor Hurst, questions or comments?
I think it's important we get the feedback first before we move on to this particular bylaw. In some instances, I can understand increasing the rate. In other instances, really a little bit leery, but I certainly don't want to prejudge anything. Don't get the information back from the affected groups.
Yeah.
I would echo that. I felt in the report the grid of the proposed dollar amounts is really important because when you just hear percentages, it's shock, but when it's percentages articulated as dollar amounts, so I would just encourage as part of the consultation, which I think is really important, the real dollar amounts are incorporated, because I think that's really.
Yeah, I just would like to sort of, further say that the recommendations that came from the rec committee were based strictly on comparator municipalities and what comparator municipalities are doing. Which is not necessarily to say that's what we should be doing. It's just saying, this is what others are doing. And so, all of those recommendations were made without any consultation with any of the, community user groups. So that's why we felt that was an important piece that's missing. And so hopefully, we'll have that information back before we make any decisions for our user basic charges review for next year.
No, I agree. I like the idea of having like the dollar value similar to our residential tax increase. You could say it's 10%, but on the postage side of it, it's $50. But on the county side, that could be, $500. So it's important to have that dollar value. I also would like staff to take a look at. For me, there's a bit of a concern where we incur additional costs. So the arena, I would say the indoor basketball court where there's a rental and that then incurs a student to show up to work for 4 hours. I don't know if we have a minimum or if you call a student, do we have a minimum amount of hours they work, or can you call them for an hour and send them home? Yeah, I don't even know that today. But the point is, if you rent a soccer field and we have this 90% discount, say I'm making up numbers with $10. Well, we don't have to call in the grass cutters before you come. We don't incur those costs. Whereas if you rent the arena for rollerblading or you rent the basketball court for basketball, we then have to incur $100 worth of labor costs. Then I think the fee should be reflective of the cost that the cost the township incurs for that rental. Now, I don't want to incorporate the lights, the heat, because we have those already. It's the labor costs I want to at least have some consideration for. And then that feedback from the groups, because I don't know if maybe it is appropriate. Maybe it's appropriate that other taxpayers subsidize the wage of that employee for this one group. Maybe that is appropriate, but I don't know that yet. So just take a look at that. And I don't know what other facilities where if they rent it, we have, like it's mandatory that we have a staff member attend. So that's the ones I would be focused on for that component. If I missed any. I think I agree, not going forward until we hear from everybody.
Question, Mr. Mayor, on the process, would we be sending this item back to the recreation group to come up with a new input with respect to the labor costs you were mentioning and then go out to the public? Or are you gonna try to do both of that at the same time?
I'd like to hear from staff if it's even feasible first before we stir up that hornet's nest. Because I don't know if it's too hard to track I don't know, so I'd leave it to staff I'd take their guidance on them. Sure. So we're. Okay. Did we read it? Yeah, we read it?
Yes.
Okay, I get a move for the recommendation, please. Do we move it?
Right here, amendments.
I think we did. It was you two. Bill Sir, sorry. Glad you know.
Thank you, Chair. Go ahead.
Here. James, okay, so you captured that? Okay, do we need clarity? We're good? Okay, good. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Right, potential bylaw. Big thing open here, sorry.
Yes.
All right, who's doing that one? Oh, that's why I decided to sneak in there. You're ready, Monica.
So I'll be trying to go through both the presentation for council as well as speaking to this report. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide council with an overview of the existing records retention bylaw and the draft repeal and replace bylaw for council's consideration. So on the agenda today, we are going to provide you with a quick overview of the existing records retention bylaw, the enabling legislation, overview of the proposed changes of the records retention bylaw and associated retention schedule, benefits of the proposed changes, and our next steps. So the current records retention bylaw was enacted in 2013, and it repealed and replaced the original bylaw, which was enacted in 1966. It uses the Ontario Municipal Records Management System, otherwise known as Tom RIMS, as a legislative guide. However, the bylaw retention schedule is not consistently updated at this point. It requires that all paper and digital records are retained, which is creating duplicate records or duplicate copies of records for the township. At this time, it's administered by the clerk, who delegates authority to the deputy clerk to establish procedures related to records creation, retention, and destruction. And the amendments to the bylaw and or the retention schedule would require council approval. The enabling legislation is sections 254, subsection 1 of the Municipal Act, provides that a municipality shall retain and preserve its records in a secure and accessible manner. Subsection 255, subsection 3 of the Municipal Act, as amended, provides that all municipalities may, subject to the approval of the municipal authority, establish retention records during which the records of the municipality and the local boards of the municipality must be retained and preserved. And subsection 255, subsection 2, as amended, provides that a municipality's records may be destroyed if a retention period for the record has been established and the retention has expired. So the proposed changes to the records retention bylaw, it will help us to update the list of definitions to accurately define key terms throughout the bylaw and retention schedule to improve clarity and remove any ambiguity. It will permit digital copies to be made of physical records and require that only one type of record, being physical or digital, be retained as per the required retention period. It permits that physical copies can be destructed once a digital copy has been created. Transitory records are no longer required to be noted on a destruction notice, simply be destructed. And the retention schedule can be updated as required to align with the current Tom RIMS retention schedule guide and the township's business needs. So the benefits of the proposed changes. So it will improve efficiency. So by allowing for digital copies to replace physical records, staff will have improved efficiency in searching for and gaining access to records. It will also streamline the records retention process by maintaining mostly a digital file system. Help with cost effectiveness. There will be cost savings with little to no paper records being created and stored. Reduces the overall workload required for searching for a record in both physical and digital files. Staff working remotely will have access to most records when retained in the digital format. And it's a better use of office space currently being burdened by physical files. We could convert some of our file rooms into other much needed space. Compliance. Having the delegated authority to update the bylaw retention schedule will ensure that the township is aligning with changes to legislation as they occur. And it'll ensure regulatory compliance through more effective records retention bylaw. And last but definitely not least, it will improve and enhance our customer service. It's just more efficient staff time for processing routine record or routine disclosure requests and freedom of information requests. And effective records retention enhances the customer service. It just allows us to provide quick access to records and more accurate responses to those requests. So at this time, the next steps would be to have council approve the bylaw as presented, for staff training to take place of the new bylaw and our updated retention schedule, for all departments to transition to the Tom RIMS filing system for a consistent filing chain, and the destruction of physical records that have been digitized in accordance with the retention schedule. And you have been provided with the updated bylaw as well as the updated records retention.
Okay, thank you. Want to read the recommendation, please?
That report CR 2025-030 entitled Records Retention Bylaw Repeal and Replace be received for information, and that council give 3 readings to bylaw 2025-006, being a bylaw to establish retention periods for records of the township of Whistler and to repeal bylaw 2013-069.
You can move for that, please. Councilor Schools, Councilor Hurst, questions or comments for Sam?
Yes, the digitization process is ongoing. How much roughly have you digitized to date, and what's your figure, the long-term prospect for completing?
So we have been diligently digitizing over the last year. Thankfully, we've had some assistance with some of our co-op students and high school students that have greatly assisted us with that. At this time, volume wise, we have about 45 bankers boxes worth of physical records that have been digitized. There is more to go, but a large bulk of our physical records have been digitized to date.
And in terms of the retention, does it mirror, say, the county or other municipalities?
So many municipalities use that prescribed retention schedule that Tom Rims does issue as a guide. In our research, and again, I want to make mention that Monica was a huge help with this project. And as well, she is our lead, Tom Rims expert here at the township. She meets with all the departments and provides them with that training. What we found in a lot of our research is many of the municipalities on an annual basis simply replaces their retention schedule with exactly the guide that is prescribed by Tom Rims. They don't edit it to meet possibly their business needs more so. It's simply just replaced every year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, really good update, thank you. Me just a couple quick questions. So I like the idea of like reduced administration costs. I'm curious, are there any anticipated costs incurred with the digitization and keeping things in the cloud and all that type of stuff? Or is that just the existing infrastructure that the township has that just utilizing better?
Correct.
Okay. So I think that's important, just from an overall cost structure standpoint, that this is hopefully a net win in terms of human resource and costing. That was my interpretation, but I wanted to hear that. I think my other question, I think Councillor Sapoulis noted that one is, yeah, like lesson learned from other municipalities, and maybe we're a step ahead of other municipalities within the county, but that would be my other piece, just the learning opportunities of shared experiences. Maybe this is just me encouraging you to share this with other municipalities if you're collectively you're a half a step ahead of what's worked, what hasn't, what's more efficient, that type of thing. And maybe my last comment is, it's having digital records, right? You're not rooting through 40 bankers boxes and stuff. As long as it's archived appropriately, that's important for just corporate history within the municipality. So I think this is setting it up for the future. So well done.
Yeah, no real questions. I just, I guess when I read through this, I was amazed at how many records, types of records that that the township is required to retain. I honestly, I had no idea. So it just, goes to show there's a lot of behind the scenes work happening in the background that you don't even realize. So yeah, I think this is great, and hopefully this will help with being more efficient and great work, Tim.
Okay. And we'll second, all in favor? It's carried.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to seek council's endorsement of the township submitting a community anniversary grant under the County of Wellington's draft policy framework in support of the township's 175th anniversary. And to request through request from council, staff did amend Schedule B to include all of the costs of the event for that day, including the rental fees and overtime fees associated with with staff attending.
You have a recommendation?
Yes, that report COR 2025-031 entitled Wellington County Community Anniversary Celebration Grant Request be received. And that council endorsed the grant application for $5,000 in support of the Township of West Lynch's 175th anniversary event to be held on October 4th, 2025. And that council directs staff to submit a grant application to the County of Wellington's clerk for the county's consideration.
I don't believe it goes to the clerk, I believe it actually has to go to the CAO, but does that matter?
In the draft policy, it said that they would keep it
Clerk?
to the clerk.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. No. All right, can we move for that, please? Councilor Willis, Councilor Harris, questions or comments? Willis?
Yes, we've got two versions of the table costs. One is one with the report, the other one was sent in as part of the later on. Which one's gonna be sent to the county for approval?
30 years, it would be amended costs.
Then the copy. And the fact that still applying for $5,000, that's the limit we can apply for.
That's the max.
Thank you.
No questions other than, maybe just a quick question, Justine, would be, are there any other grant programs leading up to the October event that staff have thought about applying to?
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff aren't aware of any other similar grant programs.
Thanks.
That's good.
No, I'm good. I think this is great.
Okay, it's carried. You're again, Justine.
The purpose of this report is to provide council with the proposed amendments to the township's file complaints policy to incorporate the township's increased service level through the implementation of PAMs. The proactive education and enforcement blitzes would take place either seasonally based on historical patterns of complaints or when the township has received a number of complaints in the same area. The bylaws that may be enforced through this policy are specifically ones that are proposed in the service level matrix. And if there were to be amendments to that service level matrix, those would be brought to council for consideration and approval. I can answer any questions.
You know, there was in the Q&A, there was some circulated wording changes. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, through the council questions and corresponding staff responses, staff did provide an amended version of the policy that just clarified some of the wording around proactive and patrol enforcement and just made it a little more clear that that enforcement is directly related to that service level matrix that has been included in the complaint policy.
Want to read the recommendation, please?
That report COR 2025-032 entitled Bylaw Complaint Policy Amendment be received for information, and that council approves the amendments to the bylaw complaint policy as amended.
Right, can you move for that, please? Councilor Willis, Councilor Harris, questions or comments, Councilor Willis?
So with respect to the matrix, to add items to the matrix, what would be the process to do so?
So staff will be reviewing the matrix on an annual basis. If staff had a suggestion to bring forward to council, staff would bring back that policy with that recommendation for council's consideration or approval. Alternatively, we could look at a process where if council had bylaws that they wanted to include. If there was any that council wanted us to consider today, we could look at bringing back the report. Sure.
Okay, do we need to capture that someplace out in the report, the fact that you can be coming back to council for any changes to the matrix?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the policy itself does not provide staff with any delegated authority to amend the policy, so any changes to the policy would have to be brought forward.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's, okay.
I'm supportive of Councillor Poulos' comments. That was mine, is like, how do you modify this after you learn from it? So I'm happy with the comments.
Yeah, just when, I guess I support this, the idea of this and the need for proactive enforcement. I guess I'm a bit cautious. I guess what I want to make sure of is that we're not, by sort of proactively doing bylaw enforcement, inadvertently penalizing sort of minor good faith activities on people's property with sort of a ticket first approach. And I don't think that that's the intent. My preference would be to see, especially for like minor things, I understand, major or safety issues or whatever, but for those minor things, that it would be sort of like an education first approach. And I do believe that that's the intent, but I just worry that over time that intent gets, you know, changed or misconstrued. And I just am wondering if we need to add any language into the policy that sort of encourages that approach.
Through you, Chair. So the policy does speak to education, like it even includes kind of in the wording of education first, and that has always been the township's approach. Unless there are egregious offenses, we're not typically a ticket first. With the implementation of AMPS, there may be opportunities for using that as a education tactic as well. But for example, one of the things that we are already doing proactively is each year at the start of the school year, we send a leaflet home with students at Aberfoyle Public School to remind folks about the parking regulations. So this is just kind of trying to build on some of the things that we already do and put that into a policy so that we're recognizing some of the things that we're already trying to achieve with proactive education.
Along similar lines, so we as council, and I believe even yourself as the supervisor of bylaw officer, you can't tell bylaw officer how to enforce bylaw, things of that nature. So my concern is, you know, can we put into policy that, say, the matrix bylaws, more firm language that, you know, there needs to be correspondence with the homeowner. I don't desire our bylaw officer, because they have every right to do this. Plus, if they see an infraction, they can go on the property, we can't stop them, people can complain, it doesn't matter. But, you know, if you have a change in bylaw officers, or, you know, somebody is more keen, or whatever it may be, is it, as Councilor Gord is saying, that the matrix bylaws that we have prescribed process, unless it's egregious life safety, things of that nature. And I hear you saying it's fine, but I'm worried, I have similar concerns. I don't want a very eager, you know, I should say, you know, could make it beautiful. And then just out there ticketing something like mad without the education component, without the contact, without giving the landowner, you do a street drive-by and you see something, giving the landowner an opportunity to explain what they're doing, which then would bring clarity to the subject.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I believe the way our current policy is laid out, it does kind of walk the bylaw enforcement officer through what the expectations are upon seeing a violation and what their options are related to education warnings, and it talks about that progressive enforcement. So I think the policy currently helps to address that, but we do have our CAO who maybe can speak to that more.
Forgot she was here. Welcome.
Good morning. Yes, I'm here. Thanks. I'm online today. Can you hear me okay?
Hear you well.
All right, great. So through you, Mr. Chair, yes, our Director of Corporate Services has outlined it really well. The purpose of this policy document is to inform staff, whether there's turnover or what have you, on what the township's protocol is when we're administering enforcement. Now, with that said, you're right. You cannot fetter an officer's discretion as it relates to their duties under the act and what they've been delegated. However, this policy was put in place by this, I believe, this term of council in order, or perhaps just slightly before this term of council, but in order to be able to guide that. So with an education first, and then working through progressive enforcement as needed. So we are very fortunate to have a lot of those guiding documents in place, and they are living documents. We make sure that they're reviewed, they're trained with when we onboard new staff, all of those things. So that continuity in how we administer the enforcement program really is, it's developed through this framework of policy. So it's an important document that we refer to quite a bit.
Maybe just as a, similar to when we've introduced other sort of changes, is it possible to maybe look at this again or bring a report back maybe in a year's time, see how this change is working or not working, and if any tweaks need to be made? Just that we have a discussion about it, you know, a year from now or whatever is the appropriate amount of time, I'm not sure, but so that we're not losing sight of it over time.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair, what we could do and take away is we do have a schedule of bylaws and policies, and it's sort of the review schedule for them. Typically, most of them are on a 5-year review schedule, but what we could do is maybe pick out the documents that we'd like to review more frequently and bring back that schedule back to council so that you could take a look at that, and we would build that into our corporate work plan to make sure that we're hitting those review timelines.
Great.
Any further? They move her in secondary. Okay, all in favor? It's carried. Just go along. Moving on to Watson and Associates. Thanks, Courtney. Are they presenting or?
Here, no, this is just a piece of correspondence that was received regarding the comments that they're intending to provide with respect to regulatory proposal 25 AH.
Can I get a move for that, please? Mr. Poulos, Councilor Harris, any questions or comments? Mr. Poulos?
Yes, in use of London construction indices versus use of Toronto construction indices, how would we determine which one to use? I understand that once you stick with one, once you pick one, rather, you have to stick with it. Looking in the table as proposed by staff, you can see that the Toronto indices in 2023 were more or less the same as London, but in the 2024 indices for London were significantly higher percentage wise than Toronto. And I don't know if there's a trend there or not, but we're gonna see London being higher in the future. We have to pick one or the other. Is there a mechanism to decide which one we should stick with?
Let's try this now.
I can speak to that. Just based on my discussions with Watson, this is actually the first time that I believe another indices has been available for our use for indexing. But we will report back once the regulation is available with our recommendations, and we'll work with Watson on that. We'll report back as part of our annual indexing report or our annual development charges report that we report on, depending on when the regulation is in force, and we can provide council with our recommendations.
Great, thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Another one for information, we had the county official plan, we had that presentation, and then we had the county, so they circulated it. Okay, we were a second to receive that for information, please. Councilor Goyette, Councilor Poulos, any questions?
How was it received by county?
It was received very well. I will say 2 members stood up and they asked it to be pulled out. Sorry, they asked to be removed and dealt with separately, and I understand putting for almost an hour. Anyways, they had concerns of the rural transfer. They wanted the severance date. So the county councilor wanted the severance date moved for Erin as well. However, Erin Council passed resolution, they do not want the severance date moved, and they do not want rural growth because they're getting many homes on sewer and water. So there's a lot of discussion around that. There's a recorded vote. And other than the 2 members that pulled it out, it passed unanimously as presented. So I feel there's a lot of support up there. There's some residents in here that are upset. And they want a rural severance and anyways, so no, I think it's supported well up there. Okay, so all in favor of receiving them, it's carried. We're running ahead of schedule here, right? We can go into close, or do we have people attending?
We can just run through the rest of them.
Go forward. All right. What do we have? We have notice of motion. There's nothing. Set. So notice of motion first. right? Am I skipping something? Oh, no, way back up there, but I jumped in. Council reports, yes. What can we speak about? Canada Day went really well. I started with a pancake breakfast at PCC, as most of you attended. I didn't see everybody, but that doesn't mean you weren't there. I wasn't able to stay till the end. And then we had the fireworks show in the evening. The fire department was there with a truck. And there, as Councilor Hurst indicated earlier, there was a lot of people there. It was a great show. And the Optimist Club utilized the grant that council provided for the fireworks. And like I said, it was a heck of a show. It's nice to see so many people taking advantage. I believe there was a lot of Plymouth residents there. Sure, were there maybe some other residents, but there was a lot of Plymouth residents there. So that was good service to them. I don't think I have anything else to speak of. So anything from you members? So good.
So two things actually, just on that point of the office. Would it be appropriate for the council to send a thank you letter to the office for the event?
That'd be a great idea.
And the other thing is, I never know if this is council member report or announcements, but I attended the fire training, by the fire department on Friday last week. And it was super cool to see the trailer that they had there with all these different scenarios and being able to watch it on the screen, because I think I probably would have panicked if I had gone inside, but it was really, for someone who isn't used to that kind of environment, really eye-opening for me, and really great to see all of the teams in there working together, having a better understanding of what's all involved in that. And so thank you to the chief and to the whole fire department for putting that on and for inviting us to attend. It's really good. Thank you.
I know you were there as well. So was it your truck there? Oh, well, I thought I could see your truck. I popped in Saturday. It was hot, but I mean, get fires on hot days. So popped in and watched some of the action too. I had my son with me and just checking it out. It was quite the unit. I've seen it before. But they were working hard. There was a lot of water being so they were sweating. So great job. Councilor Hurst, anything?
No, I just echo your comments about the Canada Day. There was a lot of people, good comments around the area behind the, arena. It was being utilized. It looks really good. So kudos to the landscapers that put in all that work. I think the place looked really good considering there's been a lot of rain this year too, so. Looked great.
Yeah, I played baseball there Monday night, and so my team's from Rockton, and all the players, they were commenting on how the grounds. Why did you guys do this? This looks amazing. So nice. So kudos to the staff too for keeping the keep going. I'm sure it's a lot of work seeing them cutting grass like a madman and keeping the trails open. It's great. And the tennis courts are used a lot too, which is nice. So all good. Okay, we were second to receive those reports from those concerns. All in favor. Carried. Bylaws. White Fox, Jeep. There's a habit.
The following bylaws be taken as read 3 times of filing cost and open council. Bylaw 2025-065 being a bylaw to authorize the designation of real property located at 880 Victoria Road, South Plymouth as the property of cultural heritage value interest under section 29.5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and bylaw 2025-066 being a bylaw to establish retention periods or records of the township of Plymouth, to repeal bylaw 2013-065.
Mover, please, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spillis, all in favor? It's carried. Perfect. Announcements.
Thank you very much for your time. Good day.
Do it all, just leave it closed. So I didn't notice a motion. You, did I mentioned this to council. I made a notice of motion at county council June. Staff helped draft it, and it requests that county staff report back. I guess this could have been under announcements or something, but They report back on the costing and the feasibility of, the implementation of one lane each way in Brock Road with parking. And then with a whole bunch of whereases and justifications between BRNE, Wellington Road 124 reconstruction is one lane each way with a center turn lane. What else was in there? Oh, the completion of the mid block and soon to be 34, sort of the whole, half a dozen of them there. And the ask is just to report back on, and if ASE money could, which I'm pretty sure can be used to, cost to repaint the lines. And it was clear, it's just talking about repainting the lines, it's not talking about a reconstruction or building curves or any of that thing. New lines, and, and the implementation, because I believe, Councilor Lewis, you reminded me that way back when there was mention that may require an EA or something, so that's what I'm looking to hear from, and that will be dealt with, Scudder from when the county council sits again. That's good, so we got that on the plate. All right, any new business?
Quick question.
Sure.
Any objection by staff to doing this?
They don't comment at all in the notices of motion. They stay completely out of it, even during discussion. I don't believe we can go to staff or. So the first step will be whether council endorses asking staff, then we can get them involved. So our June will be strictly just the politicians speaking about it. All right, any new business? No. Making confirmatory, because we're not gonna confirm yet. Yes, are we available?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Council for voting, section 239 of the municipal act for the purpose of a confidential report regarding personal information about identifiable individual, including a municipal board or local employee. That's for Heritage Advisory Committee appointment. And for items 14.2, 14.3, and 14.4, it's for a confidential report regarding personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and that's related to human resource matter. And then for 14.5, confidential minutes from the previous closed session, and that's for the June 18th, 2025 closed meeting minutes.
Any move for that, please? Councilor Lewis, Councilor Hurst, all in favor? Great, going to close. Here is it.
We are not going into closed session. I'll just ask any attendees to leave online.